Sometimes when you have tools to make stuff, it's more fun to do it than go spend the $6 to get the thing you're actually going to make. This is one of those cases. I used to think that fabrication for roll cages and stuff used to be hard, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, and with some careful measuring and layout, it's really not that bad. Today I want to make a MIG torch holder that goes with my welding table. Now the reason I'm using this chunk of rather nice looking stuff is because I want to get a little bit of practice, because I'm going to be building something for the hot rod here in the not too distant future, and I want to get a little bit of seat time in with the welder. Plus, I'm getting tired of, throwing that down or setting it down, having it hit the trigger, and who knows what happens, or burn up some wire. So I'm going to fix that and make everything the way I want it to be. I'm going to take you along for the journey. First up, I'm going to measure a little over 1 3/4 inch, 1 13/16 roughly. Let's take it over to the new chop saw and get this cut, so that way we can start playing with it. This is also a brand new tool that I'll be using for the future project, so I'm trying to figure this guy out too. So what you're seeing really is the first cut I've ever made of this guy. So anyone who's been around race cars a little bit understands that 1 3/4 by 134 wall is kind of like the minimum accepted for mild steel for roll cages. And yes, I want to build a roll cage, just not quite yet. Instead, I've built a little bit of structure, some cross members playing with things to reinforce the back of the car to make it a better race car. So I'm going to use this, I'm going to cut a piece off, we're going to notch it up, we're going to angle it over, and the whole intent is to be able to hold the MIG torch, and then I'm going to have a little fork that holds it up here to take the strain off the front of the neck. Kind of just a nice all-purpose general welding practice project, so that way I can play for keeps and do it right. Now for the magic moment. I've got a precision square here. It's not great. There was some wander there. I'll get better with this as I play with it a little bit, but this is good enough for the project at hand, and considering that's the first cut I've ever made of this guy, it's not so bad. So because I have been a machinist and I can't leave a burr well enough alone, I took this over to the little mini lathe and just faced up and cleaned up the edges just a little bit, and then realized that the leftover nub of stuff isn't going to be quite long enough for what I'm going to do, so insert the bigger, longer nub of stuff. We're going to cut this guy off at a 45 here. So let's talk about tube notching and distances for a brief moment. This is 1 3/4 tubing. This is 1 3/4 tubing. When you notch, you basically add 1/3 the diameter of the tube you're notching from. In this case, 1 3/4, 1/3 of that is about 577 thousandths of an inch, a little over 9/16. So if I want this tube to sit 2 inches up the side, this is an exaggeration, I need to make sure that I cut 2 9/16 to accommodate the material I'm going to notch away. So that way this can sit at 2 inches up from there. So to make sure that tube, that angle is square vertically, I'm using one of my precision 1, 2, 3 blocks that I made. I know it's precise. So that way I'm ensuring that that is straight up and down, and this comes down and hits the mark where I want it. So I set this up nicely, and I've found my center line, so that way everything is, as square as can be. And now I'm going to measure up using my little steel ruler. I'm going to measure up 9/16 of an inch right there. I'm going to flip it over and do the same here. Measure down 9/16. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect, especially for the project I'm working on. This is more just playing around, getting a feel for things. And then at 90 degrees to that, so eyeball there and there, we need to make sure that this mark comes up to there. So going to be something a little bit like that. That one goes there. Something like that. And we're going to come up a little bit like that and come back around to here. So these are just some scribe lines. This is to get me close, so that way I can get this cut. I haven't figured out how I'm going to cut it yet, so stand by for that one. So this was one of those like duh moments. I've got a bandsaw here. It stands up on its little stand like it's supposed to. I went over and ground it out by hand and realized this is stupid. I've got a bandsaw with a blade. Let's just stand it up and cut it. So I'm going to cut the other side with the bandsaw and, do things that way. So let me cut this now. considering I can count on one hand the number of times I've done this, that's not exactly too bad. I can weld that. So coming back over to the welding bench, I got it to fit a little bit better. I was looking at it by hand. I was able just to touch this edge, bring it down just a little bit to better match the other side. It seems to be sitting square. I did knock a bevel on that so that way I get good penetration. No, this is not criticals, but I'm practicing. Remember, practicing for structural stuff on that. I want to practice the way it's going to be done there. So that's why I'm doing this a little bit hardcore, if you know what I mean. And before I get into, welding this together, I'm using my Yes Welder 2.0 welding helmet. This has got the blue lens. I actually really like it. It's got the 3 different settings for cut, grind, and weld, adjustable sensitivity and shade settings. Works out really good. Black Stallion welding jacket, in case you're curious, and also the titanium Yes Harbor Freight welder, but it actually welds really quite good. I am using gas on this one. It's the C25, the argon CO2 mixture, and I'll get the settings dialed up and make sure I've got the wire that I think I do on there. I think I've got 30 thou wire, but I'm going to check before I just dial it up and hope. So off camera, I did a couple of quick measurements and cut some, just flat stock I had sitting around. This is 2" by, I want to say 1/8, and just made a quick measurement. And basically, I want this guy to sit up like this with the intent of the handle sitting here and the thing we just built hanging up over here, making sure that it's not like over the edge and like overbalances and knocks everything over. The answer was I just hit it with the grinder and the flap disc to turn it into what it is. Now I'm going to grab a hand drill real quick and put a small hole in there so that way when I weld that on there, it doesn't try and blow the weld back at me. So there's the finished part. It's still a little bit warm to the touch, but not so hot it's going to burn the crap out of things. I think it looks okay. I'll put my welds up there so that way you guys can rate my welds as an internet welder and see how I did. Personally, considering how rusty I am on this, those aren't half bad and they look pretty solid to me. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Let's get out to the garage and go build something, even if it's just fun. So final thought, what's that phrase? A grinder and paint make me the welder that I ain't? I don't know. Those aren't bad.